The common theme is, we voted for this. You knew this was coming, but we didn't. Like, nobody that I've talked to understood the devastation that having this administration in office would do to our lives.
It will never be lost on me that a lot of people that are regretting their vote for Donald Trump are not regretting it because of the harm that is being inflicted upon other people. No, 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 that's not the reason why. They are regretting it because they're feeling the effects of that harm that they thought was going to be inflicted upon other people. You see, if a lot of these people were actually looking outward and saying, damn, he's doing this to other communities, and I feel bad because I voted for this, and I feel bad because this is happening to other communities. But we know, specifically black and brown people, more specifically black people know, that if it was only impacting us, if the only harm that was being inflicted was on our community, a lot of these people that voted for Donald Trump wouldn't care, especially if they weren't feeling the effects of the harm that they voted for, that they thought was only going to impact people that were not attached to them. You see, what a lot of people need to do when it comes to what happened in this last election is a internal self-reflection within their communities. And as I've said on many occasions, this country has never really truly voted for progress. And the reason why that doesn't happen is in the very DNA of this country, that white supremacy that is at the core of this nation, where a lot of white people see progress when it comes to other groups of people that are not white as a handout. But when white people are struggling and the government is forced to do something for them, they see that as deserving. And that's something that needs to be revamped, rethought about, reimagined. Because here's the reality. White supremacy does not benefit even poor white people. Ultimately, you will become a victim of the very system that you enforce with your vote.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren.
And I'm Maureen.
Right. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how white people thought that poverty was only for black people. And to be quite honest, I can't blame them because even growing up, poverty and everything bad that came with it used to be related to black people.
Right, and this is what our speakers today are going to be addressing. And this is why we've also seen from way back then how white people have tried to propel the idea that poverty is only for the black community ever since the days of slavery and beyond, right?
Right. We even saw this in the way people voted. A lot of white America voted because they were hoping that President Trump would be good for the white people in America. They never expected that any of his policies would affect them in the way that it's affecting them right now. So in today's episode, our speakers are going to be debunking this. Let's watch and then we come back and talk about it. We'll be coming back to give our commentaries. Also, consider subscribing if it's your first time here. Also, remember to subscribe before you leave. Let's watch.
Somebody, please explain to me, who raised these people? What the fuck is wrong with them?
We are huge Trump supporters. If you didn't get the email on Monday, you're safe. And I'm like skipping down the halls, right? Like, I get to stay. Wednesday, late afternoon, I received a notice that I have an appointment, a Teams appointment with my supervisor on Friday at 9 o'clock. So I knew that I wasn't safe anymore.
You were skipping down the hall. You were so excited when you thought you were safe. You knew others were suffering and gonna suffer, but you knew you were safe. You were cool with it.
Cutting costs and waste and fraud and. We love that big picture. I love that big picture. My friends, we were excited about that because it is true.
I could just picture you and your friends, glasses of cheap fucking wine, just laughing over others and how others are gonna get affected.
The common theme is, we voted for this. You knew this was coming, but we didn't. Like, nobody that I've talked to understood the devastation that having this administration in office would do to our lives, but other people that we love and care about too within the Mid-Ohio Valley.
There it is. It's only when you're affected that you actually feel bad about something. You don't have any regrets for everyone else. It's that you got affected. You're despicable. You're disgusting. How does it feel?
It's hard. It's wrecking.
Good.
You ever hear somebody say that Black people weren't really affected by the Great Depression? We were not immune to the worst economic crisis the U.S. had seen up until that point. Not only were we affected, we were hit first. We were hit hardest. And we were left out of the recovery process. Let's talk facts. By 1932, half of Black Americans were unemployed. That's double the rate of white workers. In cities like Chicago and Atlanta, white workers demanded that Black employees be fired first to make room for other white job seekers. Even relief programs and soup kitchens turned Black families away. Or if they did take them, they gave them the bare minimum, while white families got full assistance. But here's the part they don't really talk about: how the effects of this still impact us today. The Great Depression created the modern wealth gap, right? After the Depression, the US government poured money into home loans to help Americans recover, but Black people were locked out of that. Redlining ensured that Black neighborhoods were labeled as high risk, so banks refused to give Black families home loans. Today, only 44% of Black Americans own homes, compared to 74% of white Americans, because we were never given the same starting point. Generational wealth was stolen from the start. While white families got government aid, loans, and economic recovery programs, Black families got left behind. That's why even today, the median wealth of a white family is nearly 10 times that of a Black family. The financial setbacks that Black families faced weren't just about the Depression. They were about who was allowed to recover and who wasn't. No, Black people weren't unaffected by the Great Depression. We were targeted, excluded, and systematically denied the opportunities that helped white families rebuild. And the effects of that are still shaping who owns, who thrives, and who struggles today. They don't teach this for a reason. But history didn't just happen. It created the system that we're living in right now. And if we don't keep talking about it, they'll just keep pretending that it didn't exist.
Just finished a morning run, sweating bullets, but I have to say this while I'm thinking about it. Almost every week, I see someone ask the question, why are white men so angry? And while I cannot begin to expound on the many reasons why that might be, what I can say is this: I view all social problems through a lens of societal systems, because as a sociologist, that's what I'm trained to do. And here is the design flaw in systems of privilege. When you build systems of hierarchy and privilege, when you build systems of hierarchy and privilege, the privilege is actually what weakens you. The privilege makes you weak because when you socialize an entire group of people to believe that I exist, therefore I deserve. I exist, therefore I am entitled. I exist, therefore the path of prosperity should be laid out very cleanly ahead of me, and I don't have to work hard, and I don't have to struggle, and I don't have to dig deep. I just have to receive. Meanwhile, you are socializing all other groups to survive with less resources, with less privilege. And so as a byproduct of their survival, they are becoming adaptable, resilient, creative, resourceful. They are developing the muscle for survival that they subsequently turn into systems for success and prosperity. Meanwhile, the privileged group is not developing these systems. And when they start to see the disenfranchised group becoming stronger, gaining opportunities, building systems of success, rather than say, hey, maybe we ought to be doing that too, no. Privilege doubles down. Privilege digs deep into the well of anger and grievance and says, you are the reason why I can't be successful. You are taking opportunities away from me and my children and generations. And so now, rather than develop the muscle of resilience, what I'm going to do now is start taking privileges away from you. And now I'm going to start taking your resources, and now I'm going to start burning your house down in hopes that you will get back to where I think you ought to be, which is underneath me. Not realizing that the more you do that, the more privileges you take away, the more systems of success you try to dismantle, you are only making them more creative, more adaptable, more resilient, and more resourceful. So it becomes this Ouroboros, this snake eating its own tail, because the very system that you designed to uplift yourself is actually the one that is putting you far behind, because you never develop the muscle, the work ethic, the resilience, the innovation, and the creativity as the disenfranchised group.
When people ask me why I was such a diehard Trump supporter, this was the reason why. Because of this comment right here, I felt like this. I felt like that in 2024 that white men were the only people who were legally discriminated against. In fact, I'll take it a step further. It was the white, straight, Christian, conservative male that would be discriminated against in 2024 in the United States of America. We had tolerance for everyone else but us. And truth be told, it wasn't until I realized how ignorant and uneducated I truly was that I began to think and feel and live differently. Growing up in a society and a system that by design centers and caters white, straight, Christian males, anytime you see any other type of inclusivity, any type of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it will begin to feel like oppression. And that's sad that this is the truth about the world that we live in today. And people say all the time that if we just stop talking about racism, that it will go away. People believe that because they don't experience interpersonal racism, that it doesn't exist on an institutional or a systemic level. But it's because of comments like this that we know it's alive and well. People will be like, well, we don't have a white entertainment channel, or we don't have historically white colleges. We don't have a white history month. We don't have white-owned businesses. When literally whiteness has been the standard in this country since the birth of the nation. I remember when I first started seeing interracial commercials, and I would get so mad, I'd be so triggered. And I'd say things to myself and to friends and family, I don't care what you do, I don't care about interracial dating, but why do they have to shove this down our throat? And the same thing with gay pride or trans talk. I would get so triggered, I don't care what you do, but why do you have to shove it down our throat? But could you imagine for 1 second being a member of one of these marginalized groups growing up in this country? What it must feel like to have whiteness or straightness or Christianity shoved down your throat every single second of the day? And then when you begin to question it or try to create a safe space for yourself, you're told to go live in another country if you don't like it. Or stop being the victim. Or don't blame the system, you need to take personal accountability. And this is the question I have for people who get upset about it, because I know a lot of people in my everyday life are still upset about it. Why are you so triggered? How hard is it to deconstruct and re-educate? And why are we so afraid to do so? Are we that insecure? Are we that fragile? Are we that mediocre that we cannot compete in a world that has a level playing field and equal opportunity for every single person? I mean, hell, if we really think about it, if we really want to get mad, we need to get mad at our ancestors. We had a 400-year head start, and many of us are still living in the trailer park. But for real, though, why does inclusivity feel like oppression to us? Why do we get so triggered? Why do we think it's a zero-sum game? Why do we look at it as a piece of pie in which if somebody else gets a piece of the pie that we don't get our piece? And I have a very unpopular belief that I'm going to share with you, and I stand on it, and many people are going to be triggered by this. But in 2024, if you're white in America, you're racist, unless you've actively chosen to do the work to become less racist. But by default, if you're born into this system with our institutions, the way that we are taught, programmed, and conditioned, through no fault of your own, you have been taught and programmed to be racist. And this is why education is so important. And don't take it personal. I'm not attacking your character unless you willfully refuse to learn. I'm attacking your education and your beliefs. And I challenge you to become willing to see the world from a different perspective. That's all. That simple. So ask yourself this question. One simple question. Are you up for the task? Are you willing to learn?
So guys, welcome back. Let us know what you think about this episode on the comment section. You know, a lot of the things that our speakers today are saying really make sense. And a reflection of that is when you look at the reasons why white Americans were voting and why they voted the way they did. And a lot of the times, poverty was really associated with black people. And a lot of them used to tell the black community, why don't you just get out there and go work harder for your family, stop being lazy. But right now, we are looking at America, and it's a scenario that if people would have been told maybe 5 years ago that white America would end up the way they are right now, nobody would have believed them. Right now, even white farmers are coming out and talking about their grievances. These are things that I guess the world was not used to.
Right. And here in Africa, if you had told Africans like 5-10 years ago that you'd see white poverty, nobody would believe you, because it had been strongly engraved in our heads and our minds that poverty is only for black community, poverty is only for black people in Africa. Like nothing bad was ever associated with the white color.
Right. And I found it interesting when a brother said that when it comes to the government assisting any other person who's not white, or should we say the black community and people of color, white people view it as these communities receiving handouts from the government, yeah. But when it comes to the government helping the white community, they look at it as deserving. And this made me really think about a lot of things. For example, how white people really brand and rebrand things, name them different things so that it looks good when it's associated with the white community. But if it's associated with a community that is not white, they rebrand it something negative to bring some kind of stereotype to it. And this is what we saw with the Obamacare and SCA. They gave it different names because from the black community, it was supposed to be stigmatized there. But when you look at the white community and how they use the government resources, they brand it differently to show that white people are deserving of that. They are not lazy. And for them being given that, it's because they really do deserve it.
Right. And white people have really showed a pattern of renaming things to their advantage in order for them to look good, while the same thing being done in the black community is frowned upon, right? Like, for example, not that I'm supporting poaching, right? But if a white person comes into the continent, like, for example, how white people have been coming into reservations, animal reservations in Kenya.
Right.
And when they unalive animals, they call it hunting, right? Trophy hunting. And there was even one famous trophy hunter who got unalived by a wild animal. I don't know if it was in South Africa, and Africans really celebrated it because in real essence this is poaching, but when a white person does it, they say it is trophy hunting, you know, and when a black person does it, they say it is poaching.
Right. And guys, can we also talk about how there's a certain interview I saw of a lady being interviewed, and when she was voting Trump, she was really happy about that, and she was talking about how Trump was gonna do good things for them, you know. So for someone who is talking about how Trump is going to do good things for you, I do believe that you have to be aware of exactly what these good things are for you to be propelled or compelled to vote for the candidate, right? Only for Trump to step into office and then for her to give an interview and talk about how when her and people like her were voting, they didn't expect whatever was going on, that it would affect them, the Trump policies, they would lose their jobs. She didn't expect that. What she said was she expected other people to lose their jobs, but for her, she didn't expect her herself personally to lose her job. And therefore, I'm asking, so you were fully aware that people were going to lose their jobs, but because in your mind you didn't think you were making the cut, you were quite happy and comfortable because you thought it was serving your interest, right? And now because also you have been placed on the chopping block, you feel like now these policies are unfair just because you got caught up in the whole thing. And I'm asking myself, so if you're saying that right now people are telling you voted for what you deserve, and right now you're saying you didn't vote for that which you're getting, so who voted for that? You're the one who voted to get this guy into the office, and right now things are not going the way you want, so you're kind of disappointed and you want pity out of people. It doesn't work like that. You need to take accountability, and next time moving forward, because she said she didn't know she was voting for that, I feel like you need to be educated more, and you really need to sit down and ask yourself what voting a certain candidate, what that impact is gonna have in your life.
Right. And for the longest time, a lot of internet users, especially on TikTok, were saying that President Trump was the karma that America needed, but they didn't know they will have it, right? Because them, they thought he was their knight and shining armor who would take the black Americans out of America, who would take the illegal Latinos out of America and make America great again by restoring white people to their power. But so far, Trump has proved them wrong time and again. And the latest thing that he's just done was what he's done with the policies regarding DOE, Department of Education. And right now Americans are complaining because right now he's declassifying degrees, right? And most people who are going to be affected are women. And the argument online right now is that he is lowering women's fields because most women are getting degrees in these fields. And since women are sending themselves out there to get these degrees, maybe most white men can't keep keep up with this, and this is why they're trying to bring back these women, and so they can restore white men into positions of power where they can control women in general again.
Right, but guys, I don't know. I think no matter how much you talk about this subject,
right,
if you are given the opportunity to vote and another candidate comes out and speaks the way President Trump was speaking, I feel like the same culprits are gonna fall victim to it, because not that because they're just the unsuspecting victims, but because of the ignorance they choose to live in. Because how do you say, you know, the moment you start prioritizing the goodness of the other community who lives beside you, I feel like that is the safest way to go. But if you think on a selfish perspective that so long as I'm not impacted, so long as my people are not impacted, I can vote against that other group. At the end of the day, we normally say it's the rich versus the poor, and right now that president looks like he's busy protecting the interest of the rich. Because if you look at it, I feel like this is the era or the decade that a lot has been happening to white America, and they're opening their eyes to what is actually going on. And some even say that they're getting to live the black experience. If they didn't know what the black experience was, right now if somebody tells them, I know they're gonna relate to it, because this is the year where a lot has come out, including the world knowing that white people are the largest beneficiary of SNAP benefits, including the world knowing that DEI was majorly formed because of white women. So a lot is coming out, and they've been affected adversely, and they keep on wondering, why are black people not talking or complaining about this? We saw a video where this creator on TikTok, she's called Ashley, a black woman from our compilation, and she was talking about how during the Great Depression, black people were literally ignored, and even the news stations that were doing documentaries and everything, they were going to the white communities, airing their grievances, talking about how much it was affecting them. And because of this, black people were always hit first with anything bad that was coming, to a point where white people were, you know, you have to be diabolical, to a point where white people were demanding for blacks to lose their jobs just so they could create room for the white unemployed, you know. So black people have always been going through this, and they've always found a way to just figure it out and get through whatever they're going through. That is why right now
somehow still blaming black Americans for their misfortune.
Right, so black Americans had to be creative and innovative in order for them to adapt to how they were conditioned to live. But white America never had that time. I'm speaking about the ones who are being affected by these policies. I would say they never had the time or the skills passed down generation, because they never had to fight to survive. But right now they're living in survival mode. So this should serve as a lesson for everybody in America right now. I don't know. That is just my thoughts, but you can let us know what you think about this episode.
Right. And also for those who are new to this channel, you can also consider subscribing if you're new to our channel, and we'll see you on our next episode.